Welcome to my channel, Veterans Legacy. Today's story is not just about machines or war, it's about heart, brotherhood, and the spirit that refuses to die. It's about a man whose name was once whispered with respect across every hangar, every airfield, and every battlefield sky, a man called Sergeant Major William Hawk Reynolds. This is the story of how a legendary veteran brought an Apache back to life when everyone else had given up. The air in the Arizona desert was blistering that afternoon, shimmering above the tarmac like the ghosts of past battles. Inside Hangar 9 of Fort Blackwell, tension hung heavier than the heat. An AH-64 Apache sat in the center of the hangar, its body scorched, its twin engines torn apart. The machine looked more like a wounded beast than the pride of the U.S. Army Air Cavalry. For 3 weeks, teams of expert technicians, engineers, and flight mechanics had tried everything. Manuals lay open, tools scattered, grease-stained gloves tossed aside. The helicopter refused to roar again. Major Scott Turner, commander of the 7th Air Regiment, stood at the edge of the hangar floor, jaw tight, eyes cold. 3 weeks, he muttered. And we still can't get her airborne. Chief Engineer Daniels rubbed the back of his neck. Sir, we've replaced every part that could fail. Turbine, compressors, fuel system, you name it. The readings don't make sense. It's like she's dead inside. Dead inside. Turner's gaze lingered on the Apache, the same bird that had brought his men home in Afghanistan 5 years ago. That helicopter had history written into its steel, painted in smoke and sand. He turned to Daniels. What about bringing in outside help? Daniels sighed. Sir, every expert from the base in Lockheed has tried. If she won't start now, she's not meant to. But Turner wasn't the kind of man to believe in giving up. Especially not on something, or someone, that had saved lives. He looked down at his phone, thumb hesitating over a number he hadn't dialed in years. Then he hit call. 200 miles away, in a quiet town surrounded by pine trees, William Hawk Reynolds sat on his porch, the late sun glowing over his weathered face. His right hand trembled slightly as he lifted a mug of coffee. Age had done that to him, but not to his spirit. The phone rang. He squinted at the screen, saw the name, and smiled faintly. Well, I'll be damned, he said, answering it. Scott Turner. Been a long time, son. Sir. Turner's voice crackled through the line, heavy with tension. We've got a problem. Apache 302. She's grounded. No one can fix her. There was silence on the other end. Then Hawk chuckled softly. You're telling me the Army's best can't wake up one bird? That's not a machine problem, son. That's a soul problem. Turner exhaled. Then we need you to bring that soul back, sir. Hawk looked out across the trees, memories flickering behind his eyes. Fire, smoke, rotor blades slicing the air, the smell of jet fuel and fear. I told myself I was done with that life, he whispered. Please, sir, Turner said. She brought my men home. She deserves one more flight. Hawk's eyes softened. I'll be there at sunrise. When the next morning's sun rose over Fort Blackwell, its golden light fell on the silhouette of an old pickup truck rolling through the gates. Out stepped Hawk Reynolds, gray hair tucked beneath a faded army cap, toolbox in one hand, a small duffel in the other. The hangar fell silent. Every mechanic stopped what they were doing. Even those too young to know his name could feel his presence, the kind of quiet authority that comes from men who've seen life, death, and everything in between. Sergeant Major Reynolds, Daniels said, stepping forward. It's an honor, sir. Hawk nodded. Once. Let's see what kind of mess you boys made. He walked toward the Apache, running his calloused hand along the scorched fuselage. He could feel it, the same way an old horseman could feel a wounded stallion's heartbeat beneath his palm. She's been through hell, he murmured. Daniels gestured toward the open engine housing. We replaced everything. Sensors, turbine shafts, control modules. The diagnostics show perfect readings, but the ignition sequence fails every time. Hawk climbed up onto the side of the bird, peering inside. His movements were slow but deliberate. He didn't look at the data screens. He listened to the silence of the machine. Where's her flight log? He asked. Turner handed it to him. Hawk flipped through the pages, eyes narrowing as he read notes from past missions. Then he stopped at one entry, his thumb resting on a line of text. severe sand ingestion during mission AH-64, Afghanistan. He smiled faintly. There it is. Daniels frowned. There what is, sir? The ghost in the system. For the next 6 hours, Hawk worked in near silence. The younger mechanics watched in awe as he stripped, checked, cleaned, and reassembled components that others had already written off as fine. He used no fancy tools, just patience and instinct. Every sound, every vibration spoke to him. At one point, he reached into the intake manifold and pulled out something small and grainy. He held it up between his fingers. A few grains of Afghan sand. This isn't dirt, Hawk said softly. This is memory. Machines like this, they remember where they've been. And sometimes, that memory holds them back. The others didn't quite understand, but they felt it, something deeper than mechanics. Hawk cleaned the system thoroughly, humming an old soldier's tune under his breath. Then, as night fell, he climbed into the cockpit. Turner stood beside him. You really think she'll start? Hawk smiled. She's not just a machine, Major. She's a survivor. You just gotta remind her who she is. He flipped the ignition switches one by one. The sound of power surged through the hangar, slow at first, then rising, stronger, deeper. And then, for the first time in weeks, the Apache roared. The entire hangar erupted in cheers. Men and women clapped, shouted, laughed. Turner's eyes glistened, but Hawk sat silently in the cockpit, one hand resting on the controls. The deep rumble of the rotors seemed to echo inside his chest. She's alive, he whispered. That night, as the others celebrated, Hawk stayed behind. The hangar lights dimmed, leaving the Apache glowing softly beneath the pale moonlight. He sat on a stool, looking at her. You remember, don't you? He murmured. AH-64. We lost Ramirez that night. You took a hit, but you brought us home. You always did. His voice cracked. Guess I owed you one last fix, old girl. He reached into his duffel and pulled out a small metal tag, a dog tag, worn and scratched. He hung it inside the cockpit, just beneath the instrument panel. The name on it read, Ramirez, J. The next morning, Turner found Hawk sitting outside the hangar, sipping coffee from a paper cup, watching the sunrise. She's ready, Turner asked. She's ready, Hawk said with a faint smile. Turner nodded. We're running a test flight at noon. Would you like to be there? Hawk shook his head. No, son, she doesn't need me anymore. Neither do you. Turner looked down. You're wrong about that, sir. We'll always need men like you. Hawk stood, his movements slower now. You just need to remember men like me. That's enough. At noon, Apache 302 rose into the desert sky, her twin rotors cutting through the air like the wings of a phoenix. The mechanics watched from below, shielding their eyes from the sun. The bird moved gracefully, powerfully, alive once more. And down on the ground, in his pickup truck parked by the fence line, Hawk watched too. He smiled, chairs catching the light as he whispered, Fly safe, old girl. The Apache banked sharply, catching the sun on its blades, and for just a moment, it seemed to bow to him. Then it soared away, disappearing into the horizon. 2 weeks later, Turner received a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a folded note and a small metal object wrapped in cloth. The note read, Greater than, every bird has a soul. You just have to listen long enough to hear it. Take care of her for me. Hawk. The object inside was Hawk's army patch, the one he'd worn since his first tour. Turner swallowed hard, realizing what it meant. He tried to call, but the number was disconnected. Later that month, he found out through a mutual contact that Hawk Reynolds had passed away peacefully in his sleep, a few days after the Apache had flown again. At his funeral, dozens of soldiers, pilots, and mechanics came to pay their respects. Turner stood at the front, the desert wind blowing across the flag-draped casket. When the service ended, Turner placed something beside the folded flag, a model of an AH-64 Apache, marked 302. He saluted, his eyes wet. You brought her back to life, sir, he whispered. Now she's carrying your spirit forever. Months later, Fort Blackwell organized an air show in memory of veterans who had served in the air cavalry. When Apache 302 took off for its tribute flight, the announcer's voice echoed over the crowd. Greater than, this bird you see before you is more than a machine. She's a legend, rebuilt by a man whose heart beat in every bolt and every blade. Today, she flies not just for the army, but for every soul who ever took to the skies and never came back down. As the Apache rose into the crimson sunset, the crowd fell silent. The rotors, thunder rolled across the desert like the heartbeat of history itself. Turner stood with his cap pressed to his chest, whispering, "Rest easy, Hawk. We'll keep her flying." And far above, against the dying light, the Apache roared, alive, eternal, carrying the spirit of a man who refused to let her die. And that, my friends, was the story of Sergeant Major William Hawk Reynolds, a man who reminded us all that sometimes, it's not the metal that matters, but the heart behind it. Machines break, people age, but legends never die. Thank you for watching Veterans Legacy. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe to keep these memories alive. Because every veteran has a story worth remembering. And here, on this channel, we make sure they're never forgotten.